What's good with it, right? Welcome to the Collective Clips. Now, you guys know this channel as Gunner's Profiles, man, and indeed, I switched the channel up a little bit. I wanted to get more serious on this channel, talk more serious things that are going on in this world, a whole vast and different genre from prison, gang-related stuff. I just don't want to talk about that anymore right here, man. We could talk about that on Gunners Collective if that's what you tune in for, to hear those funny stories and to hear me reflect on back and tell you some of my war stories. Well, we could do all that. But right here, we're going to get to more seriousness and some things of the paranormal and some scary stories. And this right here is the scariest thing I ever seen or was involved in. Now, I know a lot of people will tell their scary stories and they'll put tapatio on it. They'll put hasas on it. Urban legends, myths. They'll talk about a lot of nonsense, or it's always stories that they've heard, and then they tell it their own way, and then someone else tells it their own way, and it keeps going on, and the version of it switches up. But it's kind of similar. It's kind of like that story I told about Stockton, the devil that danced with the lady, right? A lot of people heard that story in Tijuana. They heard that story in Stockton and Fresno and Sacramento. I mean, everywhere you could think of, all the way down in LA. Any story that gets told over and over again, it becomes an urban legend. People put their own twist, their own spin on it. Now, I myself took it right out of a newspaper, took it right word of mouth from people that were actually there at the spot when the thing happened. And I'm a big believer in the paranormal. I'm a big believer in aliens. I'm a big believer in ghosts and things of that nature. And if that's for you, that's what this is. Like I said, right here on the Collective Clips, I'm going to switch it up a little bit, get a little bit more serious. The comedian in me will be left right there on Gunners Collective. And right here, we'll get to some more seriousness and more things about me. Let's just get a little bit more intimate, a little bit more personal. So if that's what you're into, please like and subscribe. Please stay right here. If you're into the comedy, the choloism, if you're into the prison stories, the war stories, the norteño and the sureño stories and all that, please refer to Gunners Collective, where there will be boom bangling over there constantly. Now, as you can tell, hats are off, gloves are off. These are true stories. This is the scariest situation I ever found myself in, and it happened when I was a young kid. So when I was young, and I'm talking about younger prior to going to CYA and all that, I had a different group of friends. I had my homeboys that were norteños or were leaning that way. We were going towards the gang aspect of things. But even prior to that, I had friends from elementary school, man. It was one black kid, 3 white kids, and myself. We had the brown, the white, and the black, right? We were all mixed up. We were like, it was like alfalfa in the gang, right? But at the end of the day, these were true friends. These were people I could depend on. These were the friends that I would go play Nintendo at their house because I was too broke to have one, or I would go spend the night because they didn't have roaches at their house. Them type of friends. Except for the black guy, he had roaches too. But the white boys didn't, right? So we were good. Now, we were always into like paranormal and ghost hunting, and we were kids looking for gold and things like that. I don't know, things you do as a child. You always think you're on the next come up. You're going to get a bag. You're going to blow up. You're going to do this. But it never happens. What happens is you get an ass whooping from your mom for being out too late, and you start all over again the next day. But this particular day, where we grew up, is a small area called Beechwood, located in Merced County, in Merced. It's right in between Atwater and Winton and Merced. And it's its own little area. And, I lived there when I was much younger. And I knew everybody. I knew everybody from that neighborhood. And my friends, we all went to the same school, which was Franklin Elementary. So we all lived in that close proximity. And I remember distinctly, it's been 40 years, 40 plus, probably about 38 years. I was like 8 or 9 years old. But I remember this particular day, we all went to go hang out at my homeboy Tony's house, who was the black kid. We liked going over there. His mother was very cool. She would let us all spend the night, and he lived more out towards the country. So a lot more was going on. For us, that was even more freedom than living in the city, because we could wander around and roam. And it wasn't like it was, or like it is now, where there's the sound of freedom, where kids are getting taken and took. I mean, they were back then, but it's not as much now. So in Beechwood, on this street called on Beechwood Street, there's a church, right? It's a little white church. It looks like one of them old school ones from the scary movies. By itself, no one's ever there. You might see one old school car parked right there. That's probably the preacher himself. But no one ever was there, it seemed like. And we had never went there on a Sunday, so we didn't know. We didn't know. We used to tell scary stories about it. Oh, it's probably haunted, and it's probably this, and it's probably that. So we actually went over there that evening that we spent the night at my friend Tony's house. We all walked all the way from his house out in the country to this church. And we were trying to look in, and it had those old glass windows. You know, what are they called? I forget what, stained glass windows, right? You couldn't really look in. You can see out, but you can't see in, right? There was really nothing to look at. You know, we got our hopes all up that we were going to see a ghost, or we are going to see something evil would manifest or something like that. But to our disappointment, we didn't see that. What we seen was a whole lot of white church. So we decided to go back on Sunday. And I remember that was a Saturday night that we had all spent the night there. We told our little ghost stories and kicked it. And like Alfalfa and the gang, man, we all mobbed over there. We walked over to this church. And there was people. To our surprise, there was people there. Few cars, and we're like, okay, we're gonna go in. We're gonna try to steal some money from the fucking basket, right? Or whatever. We're bad kids. I reflect now, and I'm like, wow, you know, even thinking that way, but that's what it was. You know, I'm not gonna sugarcoat or add preservatives here. I don't do that. So, anyways, I remember, and this is true story. This happened to be the scariest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life, right? We walk in, and the old man that was preaching, he was an older, taller white man. He looks at us with disdain, right? For those of you that don't know what the word disdain is, go to AI or Google, right? It'll tell you. And I'll tell you too, because I'll give you some knowledge you can't get in college. Disdain is disgust. He looked at us like we didn't belong there, right? Like we were intruding or involving ourselves in something that didn't, you know, we shouldn't have partaken. You know, most churches, they got open arms. They want you to go in there, even kids, because that's the time when you can mold someone into becoming a productive member of society, a church-going person, whatever. I'm not here to preach. I'm just saying. That's what it is, right? But he looked at us like with utter belief that we would go in there. And of course, we're little bad kids. We're going in there with the intentions of just seeing it because we had talked about it and spoke on it so much and imagined what was in there. We were pretty disappointed. It wasn't nothing but a few pews, which are the old wooden benches. There was one bigger. She was a black lady. She was at least very precious, right? She was on the piano. And there was a few older ladies and a few older gentlemen there. No kids, no people in their 30s. It was just all 70 and plus, you know. And we quickly realized this wasn't for us, but we were stuck. It seemed like when we walked in there, the deacon that was behind us closed the door on us. Like, hey, if you're going to come in here, you're going to participate. And that's just it, right? So now we're stuck and we're all looking at each other. And we're kind of shook because when you're kids, you don't like to be closed in and trapped. You know, prior to that, my mother used to say, go to sleep, motherfucker. You ain't coming out your room, and close the door on me. And that was that, right? It's pretty stuck. So I understood the situation of going to the hole before going to the hole in prison, right? But my white friends weren't used to this. They were like, dude, did he really just close the door, dude? Right? Would, right? And, you know, my black friend was like, as long as there ain't roaches in this motherfucker, I'm good, right? Shit, I'll stay here for an hour and listen to these white people talk. And it started out normal. So they started preaching, reading from the Bible. And you got to understand, we were not into that. But again, you know, we were just trying to see if they were going to feed us some cookies or something. What could we get out of this situation to make it worth it? And this is when the scariness came in. This guy started preaching from Revelations. He started talking about the end of the world and started talking about demons and things that were coming and beasts with 7 heads and things of that nature. And I was tripping out because I had heard about this through my abuelita, my grandmother. You know, she would tell us stories about the future and the end was coming. And I constantly heard that. I didn't believe a fucking word of it, but I heard it, you know, and whatever came out of her mouth, if she believed it, we didn't, right? That's just how it was, because she was off her rocker a little bit. But the way that this guy was saying it, he was convinced, right? He had a lot of conviction in his speech or in his, you know, the way he was talking. And this lady was playing music. This big black lady was playing music. Whatever she was playing, and it started getting louder. She was really getting into it and louder and louder. And I remember the deacon came walking past us kind of fast forward because he noticed before we noticed. We were so focused on what this guy was doing, and this guy was tripping. Okay, the preacher, he was talking in tongues and he was going. He was like one of those people dancing with snakes and shit. He was really in the groove, right? And I remember distinctly, man, this lady. True story, man. Believe me if you want to believe me or don't. You know, it's truly up to you at the end of the day. She was playing this organ or this piano, and she started to bang her head on the piano, right? When I say bang your head, I mean like fucking. She was banging her head like Errol Spence was getting his head banged across fucking Crawford's glove. It was pretty bad, right? They needed to check her blood sugar for razor blades. Blood was everywhere. She started to bang her head. Like I said, she split over her eye. There was a cut. Um, and we were tripping. We were like, oh, hell no. Right? We were like, oh, hell to the no, no, no. We were ready to go. And this preacher kept on doing his thing. He wasn't even looking. Now, the deacon was normal to a certain point because he was trying to get her to calm down. The other people were watching the priest. They weren't even caring what was going on here. And she was banging her head. There was sangre. There was blood on this piano. Okay. And my friend's freaking out. The black kid, he's like, black people don't do that, right? I'm like, oh, hell. How can we get out of here? And I remember in the back, there was a stained glass window that we looked into, right? It wasn't there. Okay. This place had no windows. Now, we looked into this place all the time, and it had stained glass windows. There was no windows. Okay. We were trapped in this thing. This lady was banging her head. All of a sudden, another lady gets up and starts talking in tongues. And I'm like, okay, she got the Holy Spirit. This bitch got the Holy devil, right? Let me tell you what happened, gente. And this is as true as it gets. This lady turned around. I was already up. Like, hey, I'm out of here. I don't give a fuck what you guys do. But this ain't Stand By Me. This ain't fucking where we're kids walking to go see a dead body. This is none of this. This is real. Look at her fucking head, right? This lady turned around and her eyes were glowing red. Okay, let me let that sink in. Her eyes were glowing red, okay? Scariest shit I ever seen in my life, even up to this point. And I could tell you other scary stories because I've seen some things. Gone, right? We got up. We're trying to get through that door. We busted up out of there, man. The little white homie was like, we forgot our cookies. I said, fuck them, their cookies, and that fat lady banging her head. And we left, okay? We went straight, ran to the black homie's house to tell his parents, to tell his mother. You know, his father was an absentee father. You know how that goes, right? In the hood. But the mother, and she was like, you guys are bullshitting, just kick back. It's nothing like you guys think. And she loaded us all in her truck. She's like, we're going to go over there and see if there's cops there, see if that lady's all right. She was one of those ladies, real nice. We went over there, dusty, place locked. No one was there. And I'm talking about, this is probably about a 30-minute turnaround, okay? We ran to the homeboy's house. We went there, and it was like no one was ever there. There wasn't a car in sight. The place looked like no one had been there in 20 years. It was truly something different, right? It's something that even nowadays, I still talk to one of them guys. His name's Dustin, white boy, right? And we talk about it. He's like, remember when that fat black chick, remember it was like a ghost or something? I said, yeah, I remember, man. Scariest thing I seen, I still think about it. You know, I have reoccurring dreams. I don't know if you guys have those, but I do. And that's one of the dreams I have. And I know it's not a dream and I didn't fake it or just, it come out of my mind. It's truly something that happened as a child. Now, I don't know what that was. And trip out on this. I lived in that area for a long time. I went to YA, came out as an adult, moved to that area. That was an area I knew well. To this day, I'd never seen anyone at that church, never seen church service, just that one day, which was a trip. But it was the scariest thing I ever seen. Okay, I'm going to tell you another story. And I've told this before on my other channel, but I'm going to reiterate it right here because it's another scary thing I see. Not as much as that, but it is truly something horrifying that happened in my life, right? There was an old man that lived on the block. Okay. And I remember I had several friends and they used to go hang out. We'd hang out, run the streets together until the lights went down. And then, it's time to go in before your mom whipped your ass, right? Time to go eat the top ramen and the sandwich and go to sleep. And I remember one of my friends, David Sanchez. That was my taita right there. We used to hang out all the time, right? He's like, hey, bro, we're hanging out at George's. Now, George was an old man. He was probably in his 80s, right? Maybe even older. Old. Could barely walk. And I was like, what do you guys want to hang out at this old man's house for? That's he's supposed to do for us, right? What I didn't realize is he had a garden in the back and he would grow these big old potatoes. And the homies, we were starving little kids, man. We ate well, man. I'm not going to sit there and say that I was the brokest person on the block. The food stamps kicked in well, right? I'm talking about paper food stamps, old school. But we were growing up little kids, so we were hungry. Anything we can get for free, pick oranges, pomegranates, things of that nature. We were going to do that. We were going to be all in the alley in someone's backyard taking their pears, right? So this old man, he would let the kids get these big old fucking potatoes and throw butter on them and bake them, right? And so everyone liked to hang out over there. And I remember he had an old dog with one eye, couldn't barely move, right? It was like that. And what stood out to me about this old man was he had all these cards, like birthday cards, Christmas cards on his wall. And he had this one, it was like a clown, it had like a tie, and you pulled it and went, It was a trip, right? And I would try to talk to him, but he was old. He was like Joe Biden, just way old, right? And I remember I used to try to talk to him like, hey, bro, you have family, you have kids that take care of you. And I remember an old lady used to come and bring them food, like one of those places when they're so old they bring them food and shit. And homies are standing there, hey, George, can I get a bite of the French bread? Right? It's fucked up. But you'll find out about George right now. So I remember we'd go there every day, summertime, man. I mean, the pull-up was real. That was the spot to hang out. He didn't care how many kids. There was about 6 or 7 of us that used to be in and out of his house. And I think now, and I reflect back, and I'm like, man, we were cold little kids going to this old man's house, bothering him like that. I don't even know who first found out about him, but anyways, we're over there. And one day, we're happy to do something else, and we could see cops. We'd all lived on one street, so we could see cops all the way at the end of the street is where George lived. So I see ambulances, cops, all kinds of people, and I'm like, oh shit, man, I think George is sick or he died or something, Automatically, I'm thinking death because he was very old. And was a nice guy, never tried to touch anyone or approach anyone in a bad manner, just didn't say shit. It was kind of just like, fuck you, right? Anyways, this is what happens. So everyone comes out of their pad. They're all nosy and shit. Damn, what's going on with George's pad? And my homeboy David comes up on his bike and he's like, man, did you hear about George? I said, what? Is he sick or did he die or what? He said, nah, they found hella bodies in his backyard. I said, no way. Look, man, these is facts, right? This old man had been living there for 40 years. I didn't know his get down. Like I said, I knew his name to this day. I don't know his last name. I don't know nothing. It was one crazy summer, but I know this. They dug up like 11 bodies in his backyard under the fucking garden we were eating the potatoes from. True stories, facts. They arrested this old man, took the dog, threw his ass in the pound, and we never seen him again. And that was it. They boarded up his house, and that was that. And I remember thinking to my mom, see, Baboso, you were over there. He could have fucking killed you and threw you under the potatoes. I said, no wonder those potatoes, they had so much nutrients. Them motherfuckers were bomb, right? Let's get Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't know what that old man was up to. The story really never got elaborated on. It was what it was. It happened like 30-something years ago. But that's true stories and facts. I've been involved or seen a lot of crazy and scary things in my lifetime. There's a lot more to me than just comedy and being an ex-gang member and involving myself in all that, there's a lot more to life and a lot more intriguing stories I have to tell. And I'm going to do it here. I'm going to tell you scary stories about prison, scary stories about CYA, some of the supernatural things I've seen, some of the things that will just trip you out, some things that we're going to interact and talk about. And I'm going to bring some people on, some guests that also have crazy stories. So stick with the gun, man, because that's what we're going to do right here. Anyways, with that being said, I don't want to hold you guys up. I know it's evening time. I just want to drop this. That was the scariest story, scariest thing that I've ever seen, with one added, and the beat will go on. With that being said, man, please tune in because I got a lot more going on right here on the Collective Clips. Don't get scared. I said, don't get scared.